What if the most expensive thing you ever bought was the last thing you ever owned? Imagine spending $900,000 to possess a piece of history only to realize that history isn't dead. It's just been waiting for a new place to drown. Welcome to Shadowland, a place where darkness breathes and silence speaks.
Tonight, we step inside a sprawling estate in the quiet suburbs of Ohio, where a wealthy collector has just acquired the ultimate prize, the recovered gear of a Titanic survivor. But as the temperature in his home begins to plummet and the smell of brine fills the air, he'll learn that some treasures come with a debt that can't be paid in breath. Stay until the end!
If you want to know what's really hiding in the damp corners of your basement.
Mark felt the weight of the mahogany box on his desk, his fingers tracing the polished wood. Inside lay a silver pocket watch and a leather-bound journal, recovered from the wreckage of the Titanic and sold at a private auction for nearly $1 million. The house was silent. A modern glass-walled sanctuary tucked deep into the Ohio woods, miles from the nearest neighbor. He clicked the watch open. The glass was cracked, the internal gears frozen at 2:20 a.m. Suddenly, the silence of the room was broken by a faint, rhythmic thump. Mark froze. He looked at the watch. The second hand, it had moved just a fraction. He shook his head, a thin smile touching his lips. Old springs, he told himself, just gravity settling. He set the watch down and walked to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, the soft hum of his high-end refrigerator grounding him in reality. For 30 seconds, he felt the familiar comfort of his wealth, the safety of his locked doors and security systems.
He looked down at his feet. The kitchen floor was wet.
Not a spill, but a thick, dark puddle that seemed to be seeping up from the floorboards. He touched it. It was ice cold. He brought his fingers to his lips. Salt water. Mark's breath hitched. He looked toward the hallway leading to the basement. The air there was shimmering, distorted like a heat haze, but freezing. He saw a figure standing at the end of the hall. It looked like a man in a sodden, heavy wool coat, but the proportions were wrong. The shoulders were too wide, the head tilted at an impossible, snapped angle. Mark backed away, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice cracking. The figure didn't move. Instead, the sound of a distant, mournful ship's whistle echoed through the vents of the house. The lights flickered and died, leaving only the pale moonlight filtering through the trees. Mark retreated to his office, slamming the heavy oak door and locking it. He stood there, gasping, waiting for the sound of an intruder. Nothing. 5 seconds passed. 10:20. He began to calm down. It was a prank. It was the stress of the auction. He reached for his phone on the desk to call the police. The pocket watch was ticking. Mark looked down. The watch wasn't just ticking, the hands were spinning backward at a blurred speed, and it wasn't on the desk anymore. It was in his hand. He tried to drop it, but his skin was stuck to the frozen metal. The walls of his office began to groan, the sound of structural steel twisting under immense pressure. Water began to spray from the electrical outlets, drenching 19,000 gear from the darkness of the corner. The bloated figure stepped forward. It wasn't a man. It was a shell, filled with the crushing weight of the North Atlantic. Mark tried to scream, but as he opened his mouth, a torrent of freezing, salt-clogged water poured out of his own throat. He wasn't in his home anymore! He was in the crawl space of the world, where the sun never reaches. If you want to survive the next night in Shadowland, make sure to subscribe and leave a light on in the comments. It helps us find you in the dark. Sleep well, if you're sure you locked the window.